All right, so I have a special guest on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and that is Miss Jenn from Miss ThickumsT TV, and it's all over social media, but primarily I found her on TikTok. So, Jenn, how are you, ma'am?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. And thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so I'm going to start my interview by asking you the question that I ask all of my guests, and that's when did you fall in love with wrestling?
Oh my God. Probably when I was in diapers. I grew up around wrestling because my siblings were huge into the wrestling during the Attitude Era. My
Mm-hmm.
brother was The Rock's biggest fan, and my sister loved Triple H. And there was a feud going on, and I was in between loving it all.
Okay, so you were watching it with your family.
Yes, absolutely. So I started watching it with my family. They kind of just put me into it. And I don't know, I've been running with it since. I've been following a bunch of promotions and I just love it.
Okay, so there wasn't ever a point where you sort of stopped at as you were growing up, you just kept consistently watching it.
Yeah, I always followed it. Especially WWE, I would say they're my number one that I follow and I've been supporting since I was a kid. No, there wasn't really a point where I just stopped or I wasn't really enjoying it anymore. It's just always been a passion of mine to watch and, just soak it all in.
Okay. That's kind of different for me because I think me and my father, sort of started watching it together. And he would tape WCW and WWF at the time back to back because of the war. Even though I had no clue that there was a war going on because I was a child. But then eventually, after WCW got bought out, that was when I sort of stopped watching it with him. I don't know what happened, but somehow or another, I stopped watching it, and then I started back around 2002 and just kept going and kept watching it even while I was in college. So that's kind of my story there. So I noticed on your Instagram that you make certain posts and things about other sports too. So what other sports did you watch as well?
And so just to add, I still follow the sports I'm going to mention. I love the NBA and the NFL. I'm a very big tomboy, is what I joke around and tell all my friends. I love all sports. Like I can tune into any. You throw on golf, Formula One. I might just sit there and watch it. But the ones that I follow the most, I would say, aside from wrestling, I do like the NBA and the NFL and also the MLB. I would say those are like my main ones that I just love to watch.
Okay, so what are some of your favorite teams from those?
So I am so like unorthodox being from New Jersey, since we only really have like the NJ Devils here for hockey.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I am an Eagles fan for football. I love the Chicago Cubs for MLB, and I'm an Oklahoma City Thunder fan for basketball. And it's all over the place, and people always look at me like I'm crazy, but I just love these teams. And I decided to go outside of my tri-state area, aside from the Eagles.
That's funny because a lot of people that I've talked to from the New Jersey or New York areas, like they only sort of root for New York or New Jersey teams. So
Oh
you're
my God,
probably the first
yes.
person I've talked to that's all over the place. And I'm kind of like that too, in a sense, because when I watch baseball, I love the Atlanta Braves. And then when I watch basketball, I love the Lakers. But then again, I love Los Angeles because I've actually been, but I love the Lakers because they're purple and gold like my high school. So so it's kind
Yeah.
of like that weird all over the place thing for me too, because I'm from Alabama and we really outside of the University of Alabama, Crimson Tide, and Auburn, we really don't have professional teams like that. So you kind of have to branch out on your own with that. So I
I
think,
could relate to that here in New Jersey.
yeah, that's
For
cool.
sure. Yeah,
Definitely.
it's interesting how it works, but yeah, sometimes when you're from a state like maybe Alabama or New Jersey, you got to like branch out a little bit, but you're definitely right. Here in the tri-state area, they normally support our teams and they're very big on that, but I decided to be a little bit different in that regard. And it's always so exciting when you get into those debates.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you also follow other wrestling leagues. What other wrestling promotions do you follow?
Well, in the past, I was a fan, such like your father, WCW, and I loved ECW, and I miss it so much. I miss hardcore wrestling. But nowadays I try to keep up with either Impact, even AEW. I just stay up to date with the news of what's going on with those promotions, even New Japan Wrestling. But again, WWE is my main and I love it. And people sometimes look at me like, oh, come on, you got to give the other ones more of a try. I'm just like, no, this is where my heart started loving wrestling and I'm still with it now.
I understand that because my heart is sort of is always with WWE, definitely, and I do miss WCW at times, of course, but it's like now since I've started my podcast just last year, I've and listening to other people with their podcasts and how they talk about wrestling and other promotions, it makes me want to learn more by watching other promotions because some of these people have wrestled all over the country and in various promotions, and then they might just come to WWE at some point. You just never know. So it's just like I've sort of started, learning more from other promotions as well. And it's really cool. I've even gotten into indie wrestling here in my state too. But that's enough about me. Um,
Yeah, no, but it is super exciting. Like, and you're totally right. Sometimes that does happen. So that's why I like to stay up to date with what's going on in the wrestling world in general, because sometimes they will end up in my favorite promotion. And it's fun to know the history behind a wrestler, to say that you watched them elsewhere, you just, stood up to date with what was going on. It's nice to see it in the outcome.
yeah, definitely. So have you been to any live shows? Well, of course, before this year and last year, but have you been to any live shows?
Yeah, so I've been to Monday Night Raw here in New Jersey in the Prudential Center. I've been to NXT in Orlando. I went to a WrestleMania house show. It was a live event for WrestleMania. This was maybe in I want to say 2019 maybe,
Mm-hmm.
here in Atlantic City. And then I went to MetLife to catch WrestleMania. And it was super exciting because I didn't know I was going. My best friend surprised me with some tickets. It was amazing.
Oh, cool. I know the first WrestleMania I went to was in Atlanta. And that was in 2011, and that was when I was 17, and me and my dad and my sister went, and that was awesome. And then it was in the Georgia Dome too, which no longer exists. It imploded and stuff. It was sad. But
Um,
but outside of that, like I've been to at least maybe I'd say maybe 15 or 20 wrestling events within my entire life. And
oh
it's
my,
a great
that's
experience.
amazing. I
Yeah,
gotta catch up.
it's a great experience though, because it's just like you go and you scream and you yell, and then you go outside and you meet some of the wrestlers and you get their autographs and stuff. Like, it's amazing.
It really is. And that was my experience going to my first WrestleMania. Once she surprised me with some tickets, my best friend had actually won them on Hot 97, which is a radio station here in the Tri-State area.
Hmm.
And when we went, it was amazing. You run into so many different fans from all over the place. We met people from Germany. I was shocked. People come from all over the world to, witness WrestleMania, and it was just beautiful to be a part of that history.
Yeah, like people come from all over the world for that. It's like a United Nations of
And
wrestling. It's amazing. Hopefully one day I'll go back though, because it's been too long.
I
Um
hope to see you there. I hope to see you there.
oh my God, yes. So I also noticed that I wanted to ask you, on your TikTok, you come up with all these amazing and creative questions for wrestling fans. So, how exactly do you come up with these questions for people to answer and stitch their videos to and everything?
And I love that you asked me this question because everyone always tells me you come up with great questions, but we don't know your answers. And it's just honestly driven by my passion for wrestling. Sometimes I'll go on YouTube and I'm watching, previous videos of like The Rock, or I'm watching Kane and all these incredible moments. And I'm just inspired by, hey, I wonder what somebody's opinion of this is. Or, I try to come up with controversial questions as well. It's really going to get your mind going. And I don't know, I find it fun, but it's really driven by my passion. And I'm just inspired by different moments in history and also in the present day. Sometimes it's topics that I see people going back and forth about. or a question that I'm noticing nobody's asking, and then I'll just come up with it myself.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. So I also noticed on your Instagram that you graduated with a degree in communication. So does that sort of help with you in your content creation?
It does. And it's funny you say that because I sometimes joke around and tell people, yeah, I went to college, but I don't really feel like I'm using my degree. And, when you really sit and think about it, you do. And at least for me, the media and film was what my concentration was on for communications. And yeah, it does come to my advantage. I learned how to edit. I learned how to kind of, have those public speaking skills to speak in front of an audience or in front of the camera and not be so awkward because I was really shy and awkward. And so yeah, I would say it definitely has played a role into my content creation for sure.
Okay. And what year did you graduate?
That was in 2018, which feels like forever, but yeah, it was just a few years back.
Okay. Well, cool. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, like I actually graduated in a completely different field. Like I have a podcast, but I graduated with a degree in music. So I can sing your
Hey,
face
that's
off.
actually cool.
Yeah,
That's really nice.
I could sing your face off, but at the same time, it's like my journey with singing is just so funny. But now I'm doing something completely different and using my voice in another way, which is good and I actually enjoy it. So it's cool. And I graduated 2016, so that's 5 years ago. So that was forever ago.
Yeah.
I feel old. But either way, that's still amazing though. So how important is it for you to be a great example of women of color creating content like this?
That's pretty interesting to ask. I never really thought about it that way. I do think it is important because, especially in my field, I am a Twitch streamer, and I'm really into gaming, and I talk sports and WWE. So I already feel a little bit different from a couple of the content creators that I work with. Um, I want to say that it's important because it might show other people that are watching me like, hey, I can do it too. And I thought, maybe I didn't fit into the description. So, without really thinking about it, it already applies to me. And now I'm just kind of like soaking it in, like, all right, if that's me, it's me. And if it's, something that's going to inspire the next person, I'm cool with that. And I do take pride in, being a Dominican on here doing things that can appear to be a little unorthodox for the next person, but I like it. I like that I fit the description, and I hope it inspires people. It is super important.
Yeah, and it inspires me, and I'm an African American woman, and it's just, anytime I see any other woman of color, talking about wrestling, it's like I immediately support them in my heart and mind. And I want to, work with so many of them at a time, but then I have to slow down and realize, Stephanie, you don't have that much time. Chill. But at the same time, it makes me, happy to know that there are other women out there who are talking about this stuff just like me. So it's inspiring to me, like, and I love it and I appreciate you. And
Thank you so much. And I just want to add, you're doing the same. And I think it's beautiful to see women of color and just women in general break the barriers of, situations that people aren't so used to seeing us in. And it's such a great thing. And I think that sometimes I get so caught up in what I do that I forget that I also am a part of that. So it's super important and it's beautiful to see. And I just love to, recognize that.
yeah, so has anybody this is a little bit of a pretty deep question. I thought about that. I feel like I've never asked anyone before. Um but has anyone ever like looked at you a certain kind of way because you were a wrestling fan and you were, a girl and, and a model and all of these so many different things? And
Oh,
if they tried to like
yes.
test you and make it and test your knowledge because they don't believe that you know so much about wrestling?
Oh, absolutely. Just a few days ago, somebody DM'd me to hit the kitchen and go make them a sandwich. This
Oh
is
no.
absolutely, these are the type of things that I have to deal with on a daily basis, but I have pretty thick skin, coming from where I come from, that is like whatever. It's nothing serious. I don't take it to the heart. But absolutely, I get tested all the time, or I get put into situations where people want to explain things to me as if I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to marginalize anyone or try to say that, oh, it's just men that do this, because, I don't know who's behind these accounts. It could be
Right.
men or women, of course. But yeah, of course, we always get put into those positions, and I can say that I have, whether it's about sports or it's about wrestling. Sometimes they look at how I guess they'll judge a book by its cover and look at me and just kind of judge me and say, oh, this is too good to be true, like you probably don't know what you're talking about. But that's why I take a lot of pride in my brand and who I am. My name is Miss ThickumsT TV, but it's more than what you think it is. And that's the whole point of it all, is that you might click on that name and think you're getting something a little bit more scandalous and sexy, which you just might, but in a safe, classy way. But you're going to get more than what you bargained for. And the point of it all is we can have discussions like the next person, and you might just be shocked with what you hear and what you see.
That is actually a an amazing explanation of what your brand is all about. Like, seriously. Because I know a lot of people, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will probably click on that and think, oh, well, this is just a model and we're just going to look at this cute, this cute girl do all these cute things. But then, once you realize it's actually more than that, then you get more than what you bargained for. So I imagine the same thing happens, when you talk about video games and cosplay. And,
Oh, yes,
ugh,
yes, for sure. Especially video games too. I think that the moment a user clicks on my channel, sometimes we do get people immediately, they'll be like, "Hey, how thick is you?" Or "Is you really that thick?" Or like, "What's this about?"
wow.
And we have a way with humor. When I say we, it's like me and my moderators. It's what I knew I was signing up for when I decided to pick a name like this. And it was just a bit of I want to say it's just pizzazz. It's a little tricky because you can come in there thinking you're going to get that one thing, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
completely different story. And so when it comes to video games, sometimes people will ask me certain questions, and I'll always have more than what they're thinking they're going to get. And that's the exciting part of it all, that I'm kind of in control of how I want the person to perceive me. And yeah, it's exciting to surprise people.
Yes, I imagine it is. It's kind of like when I named my podcast the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. A lot of wrestling fans and people, whenever I think the first time I went out for a commentating job, um they literally asked me if that was really my last name. And I was like, yeah, it really is. Like, that's my government last name. That's not just something I came up with because I'm a wrestling fan and I love the Hardy Boys. Like, that's my government.
Yeah.
And it's just the fact that, there's that. And so to tie that in, and for it to be the name of my podcast and to put it out there like that, it's just like, yeah, that's my name, but then it could also mean this too. But then knowing what my brand is and talking about wrestling, it's just, something that I'm proud of as well, in the sense that when I talk about wrestling, it's like I talk about it in a chill way as opposed to just being, kind of negative and smarky about it. Because sometimes a lot of people, a lot of fans have a tendency to act as if, they're in control of everything, and we're not ultimately. So it's just like you sort of have to, you can talk about what you like and what you don't like in another way outside of, just taking a knife to it and just saying, I hate this, so that's just
Yeah, there's a right
that's
way
just
to
what I
do it. And
try.
yeah, you can keep it classy. I think that's the most important part, is, being respectful. It's good to have, and that's the beautiful part about, wrestling and its fans. Sometimes we have opinions that differentiate. And, you can differentiate opinions, but you want to make sure you just be respectful and keep it classy. I think that's, the right way to do it.
Right. So I wanted to ask you about your donut gang website and basically your channel that you've created. So what has been your mission for creating a safe space for gamers and so many different people who identify with that category?
So it's funny, we always get questioned about how did you come up with Donut Gang and what is it? It just happened one day I was playing Fortnite and I was using a little symbol with a donut and people associated with it and we just ran with it. But it is a safe space with people that come to my Twitch channel. We keep it super chill, we're very friendly, and we talk a variety of topics. And my job is not only to entertain people and make sure that we are all having a good job, but even my moderators do such a great job of making sure that people are not getting out of hand or disrespectful. We have created a culture of keep it chill, keep it nice and respectful. You can be yourself and don't be afraid to be you. Like, we want to embrace you for who you are, as long as you're not being, super toxic. And even when we've had people that are toxic, we'll try to talk through it. Like, what is it that's causing you to be so, mean or so aggressive? You don't have to do that. You don't have to try so hard. We're all human and we want to show that we have that, raw exterior and interior as well. So it's all about positivity, being real, and just being yourself, being friendly, like, just embracing it all and knowing that there's people out there like you. So I think that's my number one goal, is to give people a place where they can come to and be themselves and have fun and get away from the world for a little bit. Because I know we all, especially after 2020, have gone through our troubles. And it's my passion to entertain people and get them away and just give them a place to hang out.
So it's like video game therapy. That's what it
In
sounds
a
like.
way, yes. It's like a safe haven. And it's funny because sometimes we get people that will be like, hey, Jen, I had a really rough day today, but your stream has really helped me just get through the day. And I'm just like, I'm happy to have you here. I'm happy that you're not only here supporting, but I'm glad we could, give you a good time and you have friends in here and just, can enjoy. It's a great thing because I try to think about, the virtual world that I'm a part of, and I see it as my brand, but I'm also always trying to be a human before anything. I'm always trying to keep it real with people, and that part is the most important part to me because I can have a platform and I can have, so many people following me, but if I'm not making a difference, it doesn't matter to me. And I want to make that difference, and that's the most important things, hands down.
That is really beautiful. It's like it sort of reminds me of it reminds me of three things. It reminds me of therapy, up, down, down, and Demandy's donuts.
Yeah.
Like that's literally if like all three of those things mashed into one thing and then you get Donut Gang. But that's really amazing though. Like I think that's
Thank
really
you.
cool. So, what are your favorite video games to play yourself?
That is a great question. So I am a huge Fortnite freak. I love it. It's funny, I don't play it as much as you would think on my own stream because I always joke with my audience. I'm like, yeah, you guys don't care about this game, but I'm obsessed. I have quilts, I have toys, I have like posters. I love it. I'm also a big fan of just wrestling games in general from the beginning of time. I am your ultimate retro gamer. Like, I always tell people I'm a Stone Age gamer. I play a variety of retro games, but especially the old school wrestling ones, like anything SmackDown versus Raw or anything THQ. And I do enjoy the 2K ones from today as well. So such a variety. You can catch me on anything and everything from all types of genres. But I will say Fortnite is probably like my favorite one. I'm such a fangirl. And there's an indie game that I really like called Stardew Valley, which I recommend everyone. It's amazing. And it's just so much fun and it's super chill game and just being my own farmer, kind of harvesting and doing a bunch of stuff. I kind of like to do that on my downtime away from my stream and away from everyone. It's kind of one of my hobbies. So, you could catch me on almost anything.
That's cool. See, I only just started playing video games like maybe a couple years ago with my boyfriend. He is a PS4 guy. Soon to be PS5 at some point. And he kind of got me into fighting games. So those
Oh,
are pretty much, yeah,
yes.
and I'm really good at Tekken now. Like, and it's so
Oh,
hilarious.
let me find out you good at Tekken. We might just have to link up.
Oh my gosh, like I'm actually really good at Tekken, and it freaks me out because I'm just like, I only just started playing a couple years ago, but then it's like as I'm doing it, it's like it's moments where I'm actually beating him, and he's so sweet about it, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like I'm just so glad because I've been with people who just aren't as understanding, to people who don't play video games like that because I wasn't raised with that. So it's just like when I started playing, he saw it and he was just like, okay, well, let me show you this and da 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 da. And it was just really nice to do that. So any other game I'm really not that up on, but I do love dancing games and I do love Guitar Hero.
Oh
So
my God, yes. I am right there with you. I actually grew up during, that arcade boom where it was people would play fighting games in the arcade machines, and then I still play them to this day. And same thing with like dancing games like Just Dance or,
mhm.
Guitar Hero. Oof, girl, I be moving it. I love it. I'm all about it. And I think there's video games for everybody, which makes it so exciting. I have some girlfriends who don't like to play video games, but I've introduced them to some video games and now they like it. There's something for everyone out there.
Yeah, it definitely is. So I think maybe one day I'll get more into it, but we'll see. So I also noticed that you cosplay. So who's your favorite character to cosplay? Or if it's more than one, you can mention that too.
So it's funny you say it because I don't necessarily have a favorite, but I'm still relatively new to it. But I have noticed that I catch myself doing wrestling cosplays. Like my most recent was actually Sting from
Mhm.
WCW. I've done Kane and Rey Mysterio before, and my next one is probably going to be Sasha Banks, which I'm super excited to
Ooh.
put that together. And I did like when I did Chun-Li from Street Fighter, just because her character plays such an important role in my life as a female gamer. She was like the very first female character in a fighting game, which I think is so cool. And I've been watching that character transition since I was a kid. So it was really cool to bring it to life and be her. And I'm looking forward to later in this year bring out more WWE cosplays. And I want to dive more into female wrestlers. And so Sasha Banks is my next one on the radar, and maybe China. So I'm looking forward to bringing that to life.
Oh, that would be really cool because the thing about Sasha Banks is you could play with her and get so many looks from that.
Oh,
Like
yes.
she's like all of her gear and everything is just so elaborate and just so beautiful all of the time, and shout out to her husband for that. But yeah, like it's just so
Yes.
cool. And then China would be really good too. If I could cosplay anybody, it would be Bianca Belair, but I just
Oh,
don't know.
yeah. That braid. Oh, I
uh,
love it. I
and
love
her
it. Love it.
and her gear and just the idea that it's so unique and she makes it herself, it's just like wow.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She's another exciting one too. And I have really long hair, so you might have just gave me a new idea. She's incredible. I really like her. And, just adding on to what you said about Sasha Banks, she is very creative when it comes to her outfits and even her hair. She used to have that, it kind of looked like a pinkish purple violet hair, and now it's
Yeah.
purple. And at WrestleMania, when she brought out that green and blue, it was beautiful. So I
Yeah.
look forward to experiencing, just kind of experimenting with what I could do with that.
Yeah, see, you're lucky with if you do Bianca Belair, you have the long hair. I have to buy hair because this is my fro right here, so that's not long enough. I'll have to go
Yeah.
to the beauty supply store.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. Trust me. As long as you can pull it off, that's what matters.
Yes, exactly. I don't even know how, but it'll happen at some point. So I want to ask you, what do you think about the state of wrestling now? Whether it be women's wrestling or just wrestling in general, like how do you feel about it now? I know it's changed a bit since the pandemic, but how do you feel about it?
So I think today's wrestling is still good. I think there's a misconception about, oh, wrestling's not what it used to be, or it's not as good anymore. Let's be honest, it's never going to be like the good old years. And
Mm-hmm.
that's okay, but that doesn't mean that today's wrestling is terrible. It's just a new wave. It's just a new style that we have to, just get accustomed to if you haven't already. But women's wrestling, oh my God, it's probably at its all-time best right now. They're fantastic. And I'm primarily referring to, WWE. I think the women are doing things that it's just mind-blowing. And I love what they're doing with their wrestling division for the women. Even they introduced the tag titles a couple of years ago. That was something that was, very much needed. And as far as even men's wrestling, it's still good. I just think it's a different style of wrestling than what your traditional fans were used to, but it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just, it's different and that's okay. And sometimes it just takes a little bit to adapt to, but I still enjoy it a lot. And I have many favorites. And I, you know, think that the future for wrestling is going to continue to be bright because there's so many stars that are, have yet to be uncovered. And I can't wait for them to have their moment and it will happen soon.
Definitely. I feel that way too. How you mentioned people sort of get caught up in how it used to be, because the way that it used to be is like from what I gather, because of course still I was a child. But from what I gather, it was still very popular, in the mainstream and all of that. And I feel like a lot of the time a lot of people sort of feel like if it's not like that anymore, then what is it? And since they don't have those full on recognizable stars like they used to have, like Stone Cold and The Rock and stuff like that, then what do you have? But ultimately, there's still a wealth of wrestling, talent there. I just feel like we sort of get caught up in this sort of box and sort of like this nostalgia box. And how we feel like, oh, well, it made me feel this way when I was young and this way when I was young and blah, blah, blah. And that's great because I love nostalgia too. But if we put it in this nostalgia box, it won't have room to grow to what it can be in the present day. So I appreciate you actually saying that because I feel that way, a lot.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And I think the reasoning behind that is that the wrestlers of the past set the bar so high.
Right.
The content was phenomenal. Even the creative team worked very differently back then. And nowadays things can seem like they're a little bit more safe, or maybe it comes off as a little bit more restricted. They are catering to a different audience these days. So it's hard. It's hard because if you're a traditional fan like myself, who I've always transitioned with wrestling since I was a kid, it's it's a little tricky. There's things you could appreciate and things you miss and things you wish they played with and brought back. And I think it's about finding that balance as a fan to understand that, man, some of these things are just never going to be done, at least not right now. They're not going to be brought back, or you won't see this type of wrestler in today's wrestling because it's just a different time. Like they're being brought different. There's certain moves you can't do that you could do now, or you can't do then. Like there's just so many different changes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to find that balance as a fan and kind of understand that.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to ask you, who are your top five favorite wrestlers, male or female?
Are we talking all time or current?
Well, we could do all time and current. I mean, yeah, we could, let's start with current.
Okay, so I'm just gonna throw out some names. I don't know if I have like a top five, like, oh my God, these are like in order or anything, but I could just throw out some names that I really appreciate. So top five, some wrestlers that I like from the current era, I would say I love heel Roman Reigns right now. I think he is the head of the table, a top dog, and he is just owning it. I love it so much. I do like Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins is great. I like, everything they're doing with his suits these days. It's just fitting him so well. And he's going with this character and this image, and it's just this persona's, just complimenting him perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
To throw some women in there too, and people might give me, a hard time for this, but I love Charlotte Flair. I love that she makes people miserable because she keeps winning. I'm that type of girl. I love it. I do want to say Sasha Banks also. She is doing such revolutionary things in wrestling, and I love that she, you know, pays tribute to Eddie Guerrero and some of her ring gear or some of her move sets. It's just beautiful to see, and I'm a big fan of it. And my favorite wrestler of all time is still active today is Jeff Hardy. So I got to throw him in there. A little out of, you know, out of the timeline there because I know he is a veteran, but I had to throw him in there because he's my all-time fave. So that's today, you know, the wrestlers that are still active that I would say I really like. And there's so many more. And I know that Brock Lesnar is not a part of WWE in contract right now anymore, but if I could just throw him in there and sprinkle that on, just because I know he's a wrestler that has, you know, made a lot of people cry. I just want to throw that one in there
Oh
too.
Lord. Yeah, I noticed you use his wrestling thing a lot in your TikTok videos. But I will say
Yeah.
this though, Brock Lesnar he didn't make me cry. He made me angry last like
Yes,
in
I
2
and I
years
love
ago.
that.
He made me angry when he beat Kofi Kingston like that quick for the championship for no reason at all. Cuz Kofi made me cry when he won.
Oh,
So
that
it's
was
just
so good. It was
yes.
beautiful.
It was so beautiful. So to watch it end like that, I was just like, "No!"
But you know, and I
My
gotta
spirit.
admit to you, I have to admit, I'm just like an ultimate heel, and I love heels. So I love the bad guys for some reason. And so when he goes in there and he annihilates, I'm just like, oh my God, the people are devastated, and I just love it.
That's so funny because my dad loves Triple H, and I feel like he was
Yes.
sort of the ultimate heel. Like during the 2000s, like he was kind of like one of the ultimate heels at that point. And it used to make me so mad because he used to root for him so hard, and I'm just like, no, because I'm the kid, and I'm just like, no, I like the good guys, and the good guys should always win, and he's doing too much, and all this other stuff. So yeah, I was never really a heel girl ever until maybe I would say um maybe CM Punk a little bit, and then with this Roman Reigns, because I just feel like this heel Roman Reigns is just giving off so much, and he's teaching while he's performing as well, because it's just like, as a person who likes to read about self-help and stuff, it's like he's showing you like gaslighting 101, and it's so bad to say that, but it's just like he's showing you what it's like to be, in this abusive, family dynamic, and you don't know how many people who might actually be going through that, who's seeing that being portrayed with him and the Usos, that might, find some type of absolution in that. And it's just like with that, and just seeing him come from being booed all the time, and to also come from surviving cancer as well, it's just like the most amazing thing. And to do it all during a
Absolutely.
pandemic too, it's just like, whoa, like I love it so much. And then him and Paul Heyman together, it's just like, oh my god, I love Paul Heyman. Like
Oh, absolutely.
I can listen
I'm
to him
right
talk.
there with you.
I can listen to him talk all day long about nothing.
Oh, he is so good. Yeah, he's phenomenal at what he does. But I'm right there with you. As far as Roman Reigns, like he has turned his character around, and it's just a demeanor that he is giving off that is so dominant. And it's nice to see him after all those, you know, trials that he overcame. So I'm right there
Mhm.
with you. I'm loving it.
Yes, and then to have both of the Usos there now, and then to give a highlight to Jay, who never really did that much as a solo act, but had his whole moment last year, and then now his brother is back. It's just amazing. I just love the entire Samoan family dynasty. They could do no wrong in my eyes. I love them. Um,
It's getting real good. I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's getting good.
it definitely is. So one other question that I want to ask you is that, do you consider yourself a model in terms of body positivity?
That's really interesting. I would say I think it's more of a hobby of mine. I don't even know if I consider myself such a model, more than I do like a Twitch streamer, a TikToker, and just a content creator. It's just something that I do for fun. But as far as body positivity, um, oh, I never really thought about it that way. I hope that I do, but I also try to emphasize on the fact that it's it's important to embrace all our unique characteristics. Like the way that I look is me, but the way that you look is you, and that's okay. So I never tried to like fake anything or alter anything, or and not saying that there's anything wrong with that either, but I just like to keep it pretty simple and just be me and do it for fun as a hobby. And I hope that when people look at my pictures and they see who I am, that they can just be like, you know what, she's her, and that's okay. And maybe I could just be me. And it's nice to embrace ourselves.
Definitely. So, one more question I have is what does the future hold for you?
It's something that I think about a lot. But at the same time, I try not to get too caught up into it. I kind of just go with the wind. I hope to continue to create wrestling content, and I hope that I can, continue to inspire people to do the same and just be themselves, and continue to give people that safe haven to have fun and come around and just be a part of what I have going on.
Okay. That's a really good answer. It's very different for me because I get caught up in the future and everything else and think I'm just a big picture type person and it overwhelms me a lot. So I think that's a really good answer to give. And I guess a bonus question that I would have for you is what other have you met any wrestlers? Like have you gotten autographs from them or had great moments with any wrestlers?
I have met Xavier Woods one time at an event for EA in New York City.
Mhm.
He was super nice and took pictures with everyone who asked. Super chill. That was my first experience really, encountering a WWE superstar. And it was really, it was fun. It was a beautiful event, but it was really nice to see that he was welcoming to fans and welcoming to even myself. Even though my photo got photo bombed, it's on my Instagram somewhere, but it was nice. It was such a great event, and it was nice to see that he was so friendly, but it was cool.
That makes me happy because he's my birthday twin.
Oh yeah, if you ever meet him, he's really nice and super chill. And I was actually kind of shocked to see, how welcoming he was, because there was a crowd of people that wanted pictures. It was a lot of us, and I tell you, he took pictures with everyone before leaving. Even though it was in a private venue, it was a small event. There was a good handful of people there, and he took pictures with everyone. So it was so nice to see.
Yeah, I definitely cannot wait to get back to live events and meet and greets and stuff. Of course, WWE has announced that they are going to start back doing live events, this summer. But I just hope, they're just going to try their best to keep everybody safe as safe as possible.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the
Yeah.
best too. I saw that news today. I'm excited, and I hope that, the world could go back to normal sooner than later. And yeah, I'm excited to really see it transition again.
Yes. Well, Jen, thank you so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. So, if you could take this time to put yourself over and talk about anything you've got going on and where people can follow you and find you, you can do so now.
Thank you so much for having me, by the way. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for taking the time to, hear me out. So for those of you guys that are interested in finding me, you can find me on twitch.tv/Miss Thickums. And you could also just go on misstv.com, and all the details are there.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show. And hopefully, I can have you back at some point and
Absolutely.
and this was absolutely fun. And I just can't wait to see what the future holds for you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I can say the same. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.